If you want to get your own video made for you, exactly the same as you'll see in this one, then check out the first link in the description to get your personal PowerPoint made. Private option available. So as usual, we're going to be starting off with your best features. Your first best feature is equal facial thirds. It's clear to see you have this feature because it matches what we have in the examples over here. Your next one is that you have a long ramus, and if we go to your side profile, it pretty much looks very similar to the ideal that we have on this side. Even the definition is good, so the length is good and the definition is good. It's clearly one of your best features. You also have a straight mandible staying on the side profile, again, very similar to the ideal. And you also have good forward growth. Again, it lines up compared to the ideal, so your jawline, by the looks of it, is your best feature, and even just going through all of the different photos, it's clear, especially from the side profile, that your jawline is your best feature, and a lot of the features that combine to the jawline show that. And the next good thing that you have is good facial definition. Once more, with regard to your jawline especially, we see that it's pretty similar to these ideal ones that we have in the examples, so I think your facial definition is definitely above average, especially with regard to the side profile of your jawline. Next, you also have a good eye shape, and I think it is the almond shape is good, it's ideal, so this is definitely another strong point for you. Likewise, you also have a slight positive canthal tilt. It's not massively noticeable, but as long as you're neutral, canthal tilt or positive, it's not a huge deal, to be honest, because it's a good thing either way. Like, the only negative one is, well, both metaphorically and literally the way it says in the name, is negative canthal tilt. But you have neither. You have either a positive, slight, or at worst, it's neutral, which is definitely a good feature for you. And next, you have a compact midface. It is the 1-to-1 ratio. We don't need to draw lines to show that, but just from looking at the pictures, it's clear to see that it will be roughly a 1-to-1, similar to the ideal. Next, your eyebrow shape is also good, and you do have a flaw with regard to your eyes that we'll get to in a little while, but I think the shape is good. It's pretty similar to the examples that we have over here. Next, your lip thickness is also pretty decent. It's a good size, it doesn't look thin or overly large, so I think it's pretty similar to the examples and it's a positive feature for you. And lastly, you also have clear skin. Just flicking through all of these photos, your skin is clear, it doesn't have any spots or blemishes, so it's pretty similar to the examples that we have on the right hand side. Okay, and now getting into your flaws, which you have a slightly less compared to your best features, but there's still some noticeable ones, and I'd say a couple of them are pretty big. First is your nose is too big. I think you have an oversized nose, and I would say this is your biggest and most noticeable flaw. And it's definitely noticeable, and I think that people would notice that, and it's definitely not an attractive feature for you. It's better if your nose was more refined, if it was more narrow. I don't have any example over here. Maybe if I try and quickly flick through, you can imagine this guy's nose, if this was head on, this is the kind of nose that would be more attractive, but yours is just a little bit too big for my liking. So I think this is your biggest flaw and definitely hurts your attractiveness to some degree. However, there is a fix for this. So if you're considering a fix to make your nose smaller, then you can consider a rhinoplasty. And I'm no expert for these kind of procedures, but as far as I know, that this procedure is working with mainly the outside tissue because there's no bone in the nose, which lowers the risk of it a little bit. So it's something that I would consider if I was you, but not everyone is, big on considering surgery. It's not everyone's cup of tea, so it's up to you. We'll see. Next, I think another flaw that you have is your hairline is too curved, and it's usually evidence, to be honest. I've done so many of these face ratings that whenever somebody's wearing a hat in their pictures, there's usually some sort of flaw with regard to their hair. Usually it means that they're Norwooding. I actually don't think you are Norwooding. I just think that your hairline is naturally curved. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen a lot of guys' hairlines. People forget that I've rated over 30,000 guys. So I've seen pretty much everything at this point. And with regard to your hairline, I would say that it is naturally a bit curved, but it doesn't look like it's receding. If we had to compare to these examples, it's clear that yours pretty much lines up 1-to-1 with the bad example, the flaw that we have over here. And this is a problem with your hairline, to be honest. It's better if it would be straighter, such as the good example that we have over here. Next, another flaw that you have, which a lot of people are going to have contention with, but honestly, I do think that this is an issue, is that your skin is a bit too pale. And the reason I've had this as a flaw is because I think that colouring is a very underrated part of the BP, because most people in the BP space, they're looking at the bones, they're looking at the structure. It's always that idea of like, oh, 1 millimeter of bone changes everything. But colouring is definitely a big variable as well, and people often overlook it because it isn't to do with bones, it's just to do with colouring. However, based on, I base my model based off of how women react to people in real life, and I know when it comes to colouring that this is the ideal colouring. When you've got a slight tan, dark features, dark hair, dark eyebrows, dark stubble, that's the most ideal colouring, and you definitely get higher choosing signals, higher attraction, higher matches on Tinder, everything, when you've got this colouring. Whereas if you took the same guy and gave him this colouring, even though the bones are the same, then he would definitely get lower appeal. And this is pretty much universal in most countries, to be honest. Like with some exceptions maybe, but in most places, especially given you're in USA, your colouring would be considered too pale for most girls. And yeah, it definitely is a flaw if we make the definition of a flaw as a reason for women to find you less attractive. So for you, I would say that you would want to increase your sun exposure. And now a lot of people might have a contention with this point as well, but to be honest, it looks like you do have some ability to tan, because in this photo, we can see from your arms, this is just a naturally better colour. And if we was able to get this all over, you don't need to take it to the extreme. Like when I say sun exposure, I'm not talking about spending hours and hours in the sun, because that's just going to kill your skin. That's just extremely unhealthy and damaging to it. It ages it very, very fast. But I think a good way of doing it is just spending 15 minutes every morning in the sun when the UV rays are less intense, and that's just going to help your colouring a little bit. There are some other methods that people like carrot maxing, for example. I've not done too much research into that. Maybe you can look into it as well, because that helps with colouring sometimes, but you'll have to do your own research on that. And generally speaking, when it just comes to a good, safe method, then I think increasing your sun exposure in low UV times is the best thing that you'll be able to increase your attractiveness colour-wise. Next, I think that your eyebrows are slightly too thin. And this isn't a major flaw, which is why it's low down the list, but I would say that they're slightly too thin. It would be better if they were thicker in, say, some of these examples, because clearly yours doesn't have the density compared to these guys, which is why their eyebrows are more attractive. And luckily, for slightly thin eyebrows, there is a fix for it. And you can use eyebrow dye. So if I was you, I would use this. And as a matter of fact, looking at this picture, your eyebrows look ever so slightly darker in this one, so maybe you're already using eyebrow dye. I'm not too sure, but if you aren't, then I would definitely use this. It's something you can do quite cheaply, quite consistently, and I think it would improve your colouring and your overall attractiveness. And finally, for the flaw, you have a facial asymmetry, especially with the lower third of your face. And I think this is most obvious in this photo where you're looking straight at the camera. Clearly, your jaw is slightly lopsided, and in fact, it pretty much lines up with this image of the flawed example 1-to-1. is very similar to that. We can see that it's symmetrical all the way down until we get to the end, and then it kind of like deviates to the side. And it's very similar to this guy's face, where, okay, this guy's nose is a little bit asymmetrical as well, but clearly the lower third, the jawline, is asymmetrical in the same way that yours is. But it's not a very noticeable flaw, and especially when most of the time people are viewing you at an angle, they're not going to notice this anyway, which is why it's the least relevant one that I put on the list. And now getting into Looksmaxing advice. And by far, I think the most important Looksmaxing for you is, man, you got to fix your haircut. Like, I don't know what the hell this crazy stuff is going on. And this is going to come into the rating later on when you see that, but this just looks wacky. Like, I don't know what is going on. This isn't niche maxing. This is just rejection maxing. When you've got hair that's this crazy and goofy, and I'm going to be 100% honest. Like, when I saw your pictures, Actually, I don't know how much I can say about this, but I would say that there's kind of a giveaway that you, from a certain demographic, I don't know how to say it, that is friendly on these videos, but I guess a good way to say would be that you have a different type of brain. And you know, when you're from the different type of brain community, and I know some people are going to be like, oh, you know, how do you know that? But guys, I'll reiterate, like, I've seen 30,000 faces, and most of the time they would, you know, write a little paragraph, an about section about how they are, and I'm just so good at reading everything about someone when I just from looking at their photos. And I would say for you, it's kind of a giveaway, and it's giveaway from the stare and the other facial expressions that you have. But the problem is that with the hair, it's even more of a giveaway, and you don't want this hair. You want to look more normal. You want to have a more basic haircut, and you've got good bone structure, especially your jawline. As I mentioned, it's your best feature. So if you go for something similar like this, where you have shorter hair on the sides, this is the most complementing haircut you can have with regard to making your face more and your jawline more prominent. Like, so you want to play to your strengths. If you've got a good jawline, have a haircut that brings attention to that. So this is the number one step that I would do Looksmaxing wise for you, because I just know that having hair like this, it leads to rejections. Next, stay clean shaven. This is pretty obvious. Like, when you've got a good jawline, you want to show it off. So staying clean shaven is going to be the best for you. And it doesn't even look like you have good beard growing genetics. Some might say that you should grow stubble, but just from what I can see in this image, it doesn't look like you would have the capabilities to grow facial hair. Maybe it's because of your age. You're only 19 years old. You might want to grow some stubble to add some prominence in several years' time. But at this age, when you can't and your jawline is already good, then be like these guys, just stay clean shaven. Next, gym maxing is going to be really important for you as well. Like, you're 6'5", which a lot of people would probably already seen as they're watching this video, but this is the first time I'm mentioning it, and it's a very good feature to have. However, based on your weight, 82 kg, it sounds like a good weight, but at 6'5", no, this is not a good weight. You need to, maybe you've already been gym maxing a little bit, but you need to do more. Your weight should be higher than this. It needs to be at least 90 kilograms, because at your height, this is too thin, it's too skinny, and it's not going to generate the primal that you would need. You want a body that's more similar to any of these dudes, really. And obviously that takes time, it takes years of training, but if we're talking about Looksmaxing in the ways that you can increase your attractiveness the most, then this is something that you have to do. You can argue about the return on investment. Like, some people say that gym maxing is only going to have a marginal improvement on your dating life. Other people think that it has a big improvement. But either way, everyone is in agreement that it has an improvement. If you get to this physique, like, obviously you don't want to become a roid cell and go too far, but 99% of guys have a less muscle and higher body fat percentage than this. Like, it's very, very low, the number of roid cells that are out there. So I think that this will increase your primal if you get to this level of physique. Gym maxing is definitely on the bucket list for you. Next, coinciding with your bad frame, with your narrow frame, I think that wearing a structured jacket, especially at your height, because you probably experience your whole life accusations of being lanky or like too long, and one of the ways you can counteract that is by wearing a jacket that's more broad-shouldered, and it basically gives the illusion of having a wider frame. And now, obviously, a lot of people would think this is frauding, and it's not true, which is, why you want to have gym maxing in your protocol. But for now, as a temporary measure, because most of the time you're wearing clothes anyway, then this is something that I would do. This is something that I think you should do, and it's going to give the illusion of a better frame. And finally, I think that you have some facial development that is going to be ahead of you. I said that you had a lean jawline, but I think your cheeks are a little bit rounded as well. Maybe I forgot to include that as a flaw, but if I was to redo it, then maybe I would include that as a minor flaw. And maybe that's just because of your age. And as you get older, then you're probably going to lose that, and you're going to have a more lean mid-face because your jawline is already lean, and I think that you still have some development to go. Your coloring tends to get better as you get older as well, because you naturally accumulate more time in the sun, your exposure increases. So I think that just naturally getting older for you is going to improve your attractiveness as a whole. So anyway, now getting to the final rating, I would give you a 5 out of 10. And I was actually very close to consider giving you a 6, but then I settled with 5 because with this hair, obviously it's not structural, it's an easy fix. You can get a haircut tomorrow and that would solve it, but I can't give a 6 to somebody with hair this bad. I'm making these ratings based off of the pictures that people send me and based off the scores that I think women would give you based on how you look from these photos, based on how you look today. So yeah, fair enough. If you sent another picture tomorrow with some of the basic fixes, then your score could have been higher. But based off of the pictures you sent, 5 out of 10 is the max I can give, and I'm sure girls will be in agreement with me. I'm not giving these ratings out based off of what you should have got if you did X, Y, Z. That's not how these ratings work. So anyone who's watching this, make sure you send your best photos, guys. And that's the rating that I'm giving you, 5 out of 10, but I think you're closer to 6 than 4. And lastly, what your rating means. You're in the top 60%, top 25% of men. And because I think you're slightly on the higher side of 5, then you're probably more like this, somewhere around top 35 or top 40. You're not like closer to the top 60% of that. 35% scored the same as you, so it's quite a broad range. This is the most common score that people get. 25% scored higher and 40% scored lower. So definitely a lot of improvements to be made. I think you can get to 6 out of 10 quite comfortably if you put in all of the improvements that I said. And a lot of people would argue that you're already a 6 based on your height as well. But for now, just with regard to the face, I gave you a 5 out of 10 with potential to improve to at least a 6. If you want to get your own video made for you, exactly the same as you'll see in this one, then check out the first link in the description to get your personal PowerPoint made. Private option available.